Hello, welcome back to your weekly astrological transits, your report for the astrological weather. And interesting as we start this week on November 3rd, you'll see these very interesting geometric configurations in the sky, actually on my screen right now. But if you could see them, this is what it would look like. There's a grand water trine that is probably the biggest one here because it involves many planets, but this whole configuration is very dynamic. And the more planets involved, the more parts of this conversation. And it's just very interesting to check world events just for a little barometer to see the amount of conversations, the amount of things that are happening, and just to kind of test what's happening. So anyway, there's an interesting configuration. So Mars right at the end of Scorpio, and this was yesterday, where it's at 29 degrees Scorpio, and it had the last few days been moving into this. So you can see that there's a late degree Scorpio water, fixed water, and then making a trine over here to another water sign, Pisces. So we had, as Mars was getting to the end of Scorpio, it started to kick into this at 25 degrees when it was exact to Saturn. And then it kept on, and yesterday actually, exact to Neptune. And then when it was exact to Saturn a few days ago, it was exact trine over to Jupiter. Okay, all this being said, there's a funneling, what I want you to notice, of energies down to Jupiter. See, we've got the two conversations here of Neptune and Saturn over here on the left part of the chart, and then up in the upper right, there's Mars and Mercury, because Mercury just moved into Sag. So a few days ago, it was in there even tighter, but there's still it's still involved. Okay. So down into Jupiter. So let me just say one thing about Jupiter. Jupiter likes to be where it's at. Jupiter is the planet of making things larger, of expanding. It's opposite of Saturn or contracting. So those two do a dance in their orbits of contraction and expansion. And you'll see that they are in this almost perfected. You can see it's like oh 08 if my marker's there. No, 40 minutes. They're almost, this is 25 degrees. Like let's look at Saturn, 25 degrees, 40 minutes. Very close to 25 degrees, 8 minutes. So, Saturn is going retrograde, so it is getting closer and closer to this, but I don't think they'll actually perfect until I think it's like August or September. They'll get really close. I mean, 25 degrees, but they're still not in the minutes. So anyway, just very interesting because what that kind of means is, when the planets perfect in the actual degrees, not only the degrees, but the minutes, and of course there'd be seconds also, the energy kind of gets completed. It's that consummation has occurred, that joining together has occurred between the planets. So when they don't quite get there, there's still unresolved issues. So they're going to then change, they're going to then not get quite totally together yet. The directions, the retrogrades make this happen, are going to move apart. So the reason I'm dwelling on it a little bit is these issues that are in now, in you and your personal life, or in the world at large, will continue. They're not going to totally get resolved, or some things will linger until these aspects get perfected. So there's a lot of things being funneled at Jupiter right now, and Jupiter likes to be in Cancer. If it's not in its home sign of Sagittarius, it likes to then be in Cancer. It almost likes to be in this is its sign of exaltation, probably almost more than Sag, but who knows? Anyway, haven't interviewed Jupiter. But anyway, how we categorize and symbolically look at things, it's very expansive. And then in Cancer, it takes on that cardinal energy. It gets a bit, it's that first, it's that, you know, that abruptness, that initiation. Cardinal energy is like, let's do it now. It's not the sustaining type of energy, it or the mutable type, where it's its home when it's in Sagittarius, it's the moving on, but this is the creating anew. So this is very interesting. Okay, so all of that is big, and trines aren't all just good. They're not all sweet and wonderful and light. They can be over the top, bloated, bloviating. Things can get blown out of proportion, totally. So we could have, that underhanded quality of Mars in Scorpio and the confusion of Neptune in Pisces and the blowing out of proportion of Jupiter. So keep that in mind. It's like, do we get the full truth? Do we get all the information? Am I being biased? Do I have it all together, on other levels? Because this is a water trine, which is all on more than the emotional level. Okay. Moving on to more on Jupiter, it is also in another arrow. We see here another trine, and it's in a cardinal square, a T square. We see that it's 25 degrees. Jupiter is at 25 Cancer, squaring over to Venus at 25, just now 26 Libra. So we have a little bit of tension there, maybe things in relations or money or something could maybe be paid attention to. There may be some challenges. There's some things a little bit with relationships, maybe a little testy, or things how you wanted to roll it financial wise, or maybe hitting up a little bit of edges. And then I don't usually work with the asteroids because there's just so much to do, and I like to keep it kind of concise to a week at a time because it just gets so fuzzy. And of course, unless you get the whole big picture, which we try to do, but just keep it down to a week. But these two asteroids are being used a lot more by modern astrologers, and this is just a very interesting alignment, especially with the moon finishing up in Aries. So I just wanted to point this out. Chiron, the wounded healer, where you need to maybe heal yourself, heal wounds, where you've been wounded, things that you're carrying that you don't need to carry, things that you can give back to once they came. Is this mine? No, it's who is this? This is somebody. Oh, this is what I picked up from my mom. This is what I picked up from my dad or my brother or my uncle. Oh, this is my husband's stuff. This is my, uncle's stuff. This is how they relate. Okay, that's where that came from. So now you know where you can push stuff back. And then if it is yours, like what is its positive purpose? Why am I going through some of the stuff? So this type of things is Chiron, um, that deep stuff within yourself. And then Eris is the sister of Mars, m more the disruptor than anything else. So things that's just like unsatisfied, not happy, and then again that gets back to what I just said, whose is this? Who's this crap belong to? Send it back. And then otherwise, how do I work with it within myself? What's its positive purpose? So that because it's being opposed by Venus. So there's an opposition there, and that's always kind of testy. I don't mind those as much as I do squares, but we got the squares going on too. But anyway, this is giving the relationship issues a chance to maybe heal things on deep levels, things within yourself, relationships within yourself as well as others, and make that change. And especially the reason I'm really bringing this up is because the moon in Aries is going through this. So the moon is kind of activating this little issue here with our relationships. And this stuff is especially strong if you have things, planets at the late teens and early 20s, early to mid 20s in your chart. So this is very interesting, and things could get blown out of proportion here with the square going over to Jupiter and then the Jupiter over to Venus. So it could be testy. It could be taken out of context. You could want to start something that you may not finish. Be careful with that. And all of this is funneling again down to Jupiter. Things can be confusing. Things can be blown out of proportion because we have it all funneling on Jupiter. So lot of stuff here with this just coming into today. All right. Um, okay. Now, moving on with that. Lots of activity this week. Okay, moving on to today. Um, Gosh, I couldn't get rid of this. Lots of activity this week. We've got a full moon week, and then we have the moon in our early signs. It starts out, our week started out with the moon in Aries. It's the very first part. It's the first octave of the chart, as Dusty White in his Easiest Way to Learn Astrology book talks about, is that there's several ways of looking at the chart, the wheel. We can divide the wheel into hemispheres, left and right, up and down, to get an idea of many things. We can then put it into quadrants when we have it in fourths, but then we can also put it into an octave. um, so an octave, what I'm looking at. um, Here we go. An octave is, let me find it, my tool. Okay. Would be here, would be this part of the chart. This would be our first octave. And this is all primal. This is your first, second, third, and fourth house. This is all the elements, right? Fire, earth, air, water, and then repeat. This would be the second octave. Right over here, this is all your social stuff. And then your third octave over here. Again, Dusty's book, Dusty White's book, The Easiest Way to Learn Astrology Ever. It's very, very, it's excellent book all in all. The whole book is just incredible. But in particular, he brings out these types of principles. So this first one is very primal. This is all about us and our needs. So I like to think about the moon as it moves through each month, because we not only have that uh, um, relationship, because it's like, 2.5 days approximately, right? So two, four, we have per sign. So it almost goes, in a month, we go through like a quarter just about. So in a month, it's a little bit more like, we got the quadrant, pardon my drawings, but we have the up, the shorter, but it's like a little bit more one way or the other with that. But we have the quadrants in the map. So this week, with the moon in Aries, we have it like more primal. It's more about us. It's our primal needs on all those levels. Next week, it'll go more into others octave, so we can kind of see, each month how these, how the weeks we get to deal with these things. Again, we can look at it like, I like to see the octaves as well as the quadrants, because it's kind of both when you're looking at the moon. But we have the moon in the primal signs, start out with Aries, and we're going to have our full moon in Taurus. And that is all about, grounding yourself, having security, taking just a very few things and making that secure, as opposed to getting scattered with everything else. Taurus doesn't need a lot. It just needs a few things and make it really secure. But we'll get there. So coming into today, we have a couple things happening. We had Mars change signs. Right now, Mars is over here and changed signs into Sagittarius. So we've got a nice flavor, kind of went from that more still or inward moving energy, more silent, more setting things up, to more an outward fun manifestation. It could be chaotic on some levels, but definitely the energy quickens with Mars moving into Sag. We also have Mercury slowing down. It's going retrograde at the end of the week. Um, but you can see here it's not going to move much farther. It's at 5 degrees. It goes retrograde at 6:52 on Sunday. So it's going to go almost to 7 degrees, not quite. So if you have things at these early degrees in the chart, look and see how the Mercury retrograde, where it is in your chart, and how it's going to affect you. See where Sag is, because it's going to back up from this part of Sag and then into Scorpio again. But we're going to see what's interesting. Another interesting thing. We're going to see these two meet up again. We just saw them last month meet up. They did a conjunction in Scorpio. Interesting things about this. When they met up in Scorpio, I think it was the 29th, that Mercury, Mars, when they conjunct in Scorpio, um, and this is interesting too, when they conjuncted in Scorpio, when Uranus was in Gemini, that was like 84 years ago. That's when we had the World War II nuclear problems, nuclear Nagasaki and Hiroshima dropping, atomic bomb drops. Interesting that on the 29th, a few days ago, when this energy was perfected, they were there. Actually, I can go back, show you. Look, put a dot there. Okay. Um, right there, almost. I was getting in the way. Anyway, I gotta move that out of the way. Okay, so when they were conjunct, we had, which day was it? I passed it already. I think it was the 20th. Okay, I think it was the 20th. Um, President Trump announced that we would be doing the atmospheric bomb tests again. Interesting on that day uh, that they perfected. So I don't know. You can't really make this stuff up. So I worry, or I don't want to say worry. I'm concerned about when Uranus moves back into Gemini and these two meet up again, when they conjunct, then we have some interesting energies. So they'll conjunct three more times while Uranus is in Gemini. So hopefully we can get out of this next 7 years unscathed with any nuclear problems. So keep that in mind. All right, astrology does show history. That's why we use these things to look back in history to follow these events. So moving on now, a little side note. Okay, moving on to today, we have them. We're both now in Sagittarius, and they will conjunct again, but in Sagittarius real soon. So today, we have that energy of Mars changing, and then we also have Mars and Uranus opposite. You can see here 0 Sag and 0 Gemini. So things could be a bit disruptive. We could have disruptive energies, Mars changing, anything changing signs is a disruption. And then it comes up against Uranus. And Uranus is almost out of a Gemini. It's going into Taurus, which will have that happen this week. A few things change signs. Venus changes signs also. You can see it's at 27 degrees Libra. So we'll have three planets change signs this week and Mercury retrograde. Probably other things I'm forgetting. Um, oh yeah. And a full moon. That's right. Okay, busy week. Busy, busy, busy. So that's just think kind of maybe things disruptive. Keep your plans kind of loose. Um, things that you've got going on a little bit loose. Roll with the changes because we have change on the wing. Okay. Okay, I showed you those cool alignments in the very beginning. We have this week everything funneling in on Jupiter. We've seen the full moon. Let's see. Let's just go right to the hours here. It's 13 degrees, and we're just going to look for the moon. Oh, passed it already. The bottom of the chart where my thing is on the way. Okay. 13, 13. There we go. Okay. Doop. There's our full moon. And I have it at 9 in the morning, 9 on Wednesday morning, sun and moon opposite. Again, this is like stabilizing, um, grounding. We got we don't have much earth energy here. We don't have anything right now at the moment except for the moon. Pretty soon we'll have Uranus, which will be back into Taurus, but that doesn't like to be there. So we don't really have a lot of grounding. So keep that in mind. I think it's very important to ground, to make sure you're getting salt and seaweeds and things with salt and touch the earth and be connected to the earth while we go through this phase. Epsom salts are great too. Epsom salt baths. Okay, Wednesday. You're where is it down here? Yep. We've got Mars now moving at 0. We've got the Mars opposite, still Uranus, and then we have sextiling over to Pluto. There we go. As soon as Mars goes the next degree later in the day. Oh, I want to get it past hours here. You'll see Mars coming over here, making a conversation over to Pluto. So Mars sextile Pluto, you see it's moving fast. Let me just go the next day. And you see it's already 1 degree. So coming into the sixth now, um, let's see, is there anything else I wanted to tell you about on the full moon? We talked about that. Yeah, we could just talk about, yeah, just pretty much stabilizing our energy. It's not a whole lot of other conversations going on that day. So full moon, wrap things up, be stable, one or two things with, grounding your intentions. But then we really move to the sixth and things pick up. There's a lot of different energies that happen on this day. We've got Mars and Pluto, conversation of these two. And I should want to get the little annotate. There we go. I think it's easier to kind of show it when I go. Okay. Mars, Pluto. So there we have, don't mind the color, it's not a square, but this is two signs apart and they're both masculine. So this gets your sextile. So this is a good, I mean, there's two malefics, so it's a little bit more of like focused power. Um, it could be more like your intentions and actions. Are up to the front and it's like going with the flow again, being adaptable to things, being ready to maybe see where that deep energy goes. It's a bit chaotic being in Sagittarius, but it can break up that type of intensity of Pluto. All right, so we have that happening, and then we have a very interesting Venus, um, very interesting Venus energy. We've got, it's been, Venus is kind of weak here. It's like at the end of her sign. Then she changes signs into, it's strong here, but it's unstable at the very end of a degree, end of a sign. So here coming at the end of Libra, about ready to go into Scorpio, we've got a, um, there, and as our inconjunct, our quincunx, and then over to here. See, it's going to perfect as soon as Uranus moves into Taurus, it will be in that sextile here by not only degree but sign as well. But see, it's so close. It's still in there. So what we have here is, and especially as soon as it changes into Taurus, we'll have this inconjunct by again by sign and element, which is it's like not really wanting to mesh. It's like there's just some things that are still odd with the relationships. And you see Venus is going to change too. So Venus is going to change, Uranus is going to change, and then Neptune is still there at that 29 degrees. So there's confusion. It's not it's like maybe we don't quite know what we want yet. Maybe there's still some stuff that in relationship tangles. And again, we showed you that opposition where there with Aaron, Eris, and Chiron. So that's more relationships, our inner relationships with yourself. That opposition there going on here at the end. So we've got this interesting kind of a pattern here. Another arrow pattern. This one funneling at Venus. So things funneling at your relationships, things funneling at your money, your wants, your things that you want, and then the overstatement, the bloviated, the bloated, the exaggeratedness of Jupiter. So just kind of be, take some breaths when things, come up really quick and realize that we've got a lot of intense energies with this. All right, the day continues, but let me clear some of these because it gets kind of busy. Um, what else we got going on? The moon, where is it? Is going to conjunct over here. So it's at the end of Taurus, and then it will go over Uranus. Um, so there's some more disruption, with the coming out of being stable, coming bumping right, the moon, your emotions. It's like, okay, you're stable, and then now something, a monkey wrench in your path. We got, um, this, Uranus is backing up into the moon. They're going toward each other because Uranus is retrograding and about to change signs. So there's kind of a bit of a collision here. So just keep that in mind. The sun is also in an odd, it's a square and a half over to Neptune. It's like right, this sun is like in the middle of a sign, and then Neptune is the end of a sign, so there's that 15 degrees onto the square and a half. So that is also a disruptive, confusing energy into that day. So we've got, the sun, identity, investigative Scorpio up against nebulous Neptune in Pisces, the confusion generator. So this is also could be throwing some weird energies into things may not be as they seem. Things may not be upfront. You may not be able to recognize issues because we have some of this. Okay, more stuff. More. There's more. There's more. It's a very, very fun, complicated day, but it's just fascinating. We talked about that one. Let's see. There's talked about that one, and let's see, Mars, Pluto, and where's our? We have Mars and over to Pluto. We talked about that. So there's that sextile there, but then there's also over to the moon. So we have this configuration also. Is this these two change into this sign? It's another awkward, disruptive conversation. Okay, so without getting too much with all this astrobabbly stuff, it's a crazy day. There's lots of stuff happening. There's a lot of change of energy, so it's just important to be adaptable. All right, now moving on to Friday. The week quiets down a little bit, but there's a lot happening still. All right, moving on to onto Friday. We have now Venus still again. Now it's moved into Scorpio, so not in her favorite place, not in a good place for her at all. And she comes right up against this energy up the depths of squaring over to Pluto. We have it's 0 degrees, 1 degrees, it's a fixed sign, and then we have Pluto, a fixed sign. So things may come up out of the depths. You may find out some things, some deep things, some stuff that was hidden might come to light. Venus, in Scorpio investigating comes right up against that. Anything at the late degrees of a sign into the very beginning of the next sign, you can see it's just at that 0, 1 degrees, but it could be 28, 29 degrees up to 3 or 4 degrees of something. So things could be coming up. The same time, Uranus later that day, we'll just go to head of day, moves into Taurus. So here again is a little bit of our grounding. We got to take what we can with grounding, with being practical, with being reasonable, with finding truth, with finding our way through a dark room, through the fog, through the depths of confusion. Um, Maybe we get some sudden insights, some sudden enlightenment within that because we do have a little bit of that grounding energy. All right. And not a lot is going on. Let's see, other than that, like on Saturday, that things, no real big planetary aspects on Saturday. A lot more energy with the moon, as it's moving through things, but it's in lively, fun, informative Gemini. Be careful about being distracted. If you set out to do something, repeat it in your head what you're doing, as you'll forget, or be distracted, or say, don't set something down because you'll forget where you said it. When the moon is disruptive like that, and that all this other conversations as it's making energies, it gets kind of crazy. So the emotions in the mind are kind of always at odds, I feel, when the moon goes through Gemini. It's like a disconnect. Your emotions are quickly pulled away into the mind, so it can get really distracted by things. It's a good moon to lose your keys or something. Okay, that's the wording of it. All right, moving into Sunday. Mercury goes a retrograde here. It's like late in the day, but it's that 6 degrees. It'll be 6 degrees, 52 minutes. Um, so use the time, it's going to back into Scorpio and it's going to you can see it's going to run up into Mars. Mars is still going forward and Mercury is going to be going backward and they will meet again in Sagittarius. So they'll meet again and then again later. So we have that, where it's getting closer to when they meet, it's like well, before I get into that, this Mercury retrograde, I mean, it's really good to reflect and reorient. You use that extra time that you get with stuff. It's like, oh, I don't have to do that. I got some more time before I got to blah blah. That's a good way to think about it. Having that extra time to redo stuff, to not be so impulsive because we have a lot of impulsive type energy this year. Okay, so but when those two meet up, we've got power in words, your power of your words. You get this one though is in active Sagittarius. It could be very glib. It could be very frank, over the top. Oh, the emperor's naked, It's like, oh, shut up, don't say that. It could be, a lot of words can be coming out, a lot of things said. So be careful. Mars is always heated. It's in a sister sign. You could get wrapped up and not think about it at all. That's the danger of those in Sagittarius. The mouth is faster than the mind. You can just definitely watch that. So anyway, that's the big one. Lots of other things coming up. We have next, we're finishing the moon will be in Cancer here. That will calm down a little bit. It might be a little bit, well, I don't want to say that because it's very emotional. It's in its sign, and it's going to be making a lot of the trines over to the Scorpio planets and over to the Pisces planets. So moon, we're going to enact again this big trine in another way. Let me get a different color. So we're gonna, as the moon, it will, whoops, let me just do that. As the moon comes over to these, whoops, there we go. It will be making trine as it's sweeping through these energies. So moon, it will come up against, at the end of the sign, um, it will join up with Jupiter. So this can be very expansive. It can be very blown out of proportions, very over the top. Um, no, I didn't want to do that. Um, so the moon can definitely add to the emotionality, coming up again into Jupiter, into it, the sign that it wants to be. And then the moon is there. This could be just a love fest of multiple proportions. It could be nice and wonderful, and then it could also be bloated and over the top and confusing because we have, as the moon gets closer to Jupiter here near the end of the sign, it will be closer to Saturn and Neptune. Very interesting. So we'll have that going on, and it will be, the sun has got a big influence, so it will still be in the picture by sign. Venus too by sign, but it won't be exact. But that's still going on. So trines, although they seem wonderful, it can just make the energy flow. That's what we need to think about. It's going to flow, where it's going to go. So that's the important part about that. All right, so we talked about the retrograde. Those two are meeting. Um, there's lots of interesting moon things. Again, as the moon sweeps through, the emotional side of Cancer in its own sign, it just puts out that moon energy. All right. I think we've talked about a lot today because this is a very, very busy week, kind of coming into a very important time, or the retrograde time. This is an important full moon. We have planets shifting, a lot going on, but remember we have that Neptune in the confusion. We got the confusion or fog generator, and we have Saturn there. So it's kind of a double fog generator. Good to test the waters, to get confirmations and to go within, for that inner voice. All right. happy 1st of November. All right, more to follow. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.